They say half the battle is just showing up. What if showing up is really only half the battle? Well, then the question is, what's the other half? I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I think the other half is, well, it's showing up consistently. A friend of mine, Elizabeth McCormick, wrote a book a few years ago, and I believe the title was something along the lines of, it's follow-up, not stalking. And I find that for a lot of people in business, especially small business entrepreneurs, people who they rely on themselves as the primary provider of the service or the primary provider of the product, but also as the primary seller and the primary business administrator. Solopreneurs would be a good description of many of them. The business from beginning to end counts on them. Maybe they have an accountant. Maybe they have some phone salespeople. But for the most part, if you're going to know about who their business is, they are the forefront of their business. They deliver their business. They show up to actually conduct the business. They do all the selling of the business. They're the ones at the network meetings, and the list goes on. And half the battle is showing up. Why? Because to be honest with you, even the life-saving mobile ICU ambulance, it sits in the firehouse or it sits in the parking lot at the hospital, and it doesn't come until you call it. Well, think about that from your business standpoint. I mean, you can't live without that ambulance sometimes. Literally can't live without it. And yet, if it doesn't show up, what good is it? And if you can't think of someone to call in that moment, then there's not going to be a service provider, but there's still many, many choices. See, 911 has narrowed that opportunity for ambulances. They don't have to advertise so much, right? The local hospital, if they're close enough, they'll send an ambulance out. That ambulance service is going to come. They're going to do their job. They're going to deliver you to the hospital, and they're going to send you a bill. And you don't really have a choice. 911 picks who that is. But even still, there are ambulance companies, especially out in rural areas, where you have to sign up and be a subscriber if you want that helicopter to come. You have to have special insurance for that life flight to pick you up. And if you haven't thought about those things in advance, there's a disconnect. The ambulance isn't going to show up, and half the battle is showing up, right? So how about your business? How about your leadership? How about your relationships? If half the battle is showing up, what's the other half? Consistently. Showing up consistently. Showing up with the same attitude, showing up with the same work ethic, showing up with the same offering, showing up with the same ability and passion and desire to serve your customers. Not just from time to time, but consistently. Consistently in the same places, so you get to build that brand identity consistently with the same attitude, so that you begin to build that awareness. So when people think roofer, who do they think of? Well, the answer to that question is going to be based on, did you show up, and did you show up consistently? Did you show up often enough? Did you show up in a way that they went, that's somebody I want to do business with? Did you show up different every time you came, in a different mood, dressed in different clothes, showing a different attitude, showing some frustrations of the day, or did you show up as the kind of person that they really want to do business with? If you lead a team, or you're part of a team and as an employee, do you show up consistently? Are you the person that your leader looks at and says, that's the next person I'm promoting. I want them closer to me, closer to the top, closer to the customer. I want their attitude infecting everything that we do. I like that attitude. Of course, with the job, probably more than half the battle is showing up, because if you don't show up, you're not going to have a job very long. But showing up is half the battle, and showing up consistently, I believe, is the other half. You can't just show up from time to time to get the job. You can't just show up and be there and clock in. You've got to show up and be ready to do the job. For your customers, for your boss, and as a leader, for your team. Show up for your team, and show up consistently with a good attitude, ready to do the work, and leading them where they need to go. Half the battle is showing up. The other half is showing up consistently. I'm Loren Norris for Leading Leaders Podcast on Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.